An oasis of unspoiled nature is preserved in central Ukraine, in a densely populated region, forests that are so hard to reach filled with pristine natural beauty. After a cold and prolonged winter, spring in Holosyivsky Park looks particularly bright. With the awakening of nature, a new stage began in the fight for survival of local inhabitants. This is a natural process, a process of death and renewal. In these places of prehistoric origin, man gained strength and energy. The tribes of the Scythians lived here, pagan rituals were performed. These are the places of power and natural wealth in the Holosyivsky National Natural Park. Preserved primordial nature within the boundaries of a metropolis is a unique phenomenon. Such neighborhoods are very rare in the world. The 11,000 hectares of forest, marshy, steppe lands of Holosyivsky Park are close to high rises and highways of a densely populous city. The mixed forests of Polysia are connected with the forest steppe, giving rise to a difference in landscapes and diversity of species of plants and animals. In the southern part of the park, where the swamped alder and ash oak forests are located, a bright, sunny palette prevails in early spring. The air is filled with the intoxicating aroma of a huge number of primroses and the freshness of the water streams freed from icy shackles. The forest comes to life long before the appearance of foliage on the trees. Thanks to the primroses, the breath of spring is already felt here at the beginning of April, with the appearance of snowdrops first, followed by ephemeroids.
Серед первоцвітів саме тут виявлена популяція підсніжника білосніжного. Зараз він уже плодоносить, тому що цей вид є символом весни.
A population of snow-white snowdrop was found here among some primroses. Now it is bearing fruit. The symbol of spring is one of the first to bloom.
Первоцвітів тут
Among the flowers there are populations of anemone yellow, pulmonaria obscura, Gagia lutea.
Зірочки маленькі, все це рослини, які...
These plants are ephemeroids, that is, they are perennial. They bloom, bear fruit and die.
Багаторічні рослини, які з часом, коли вони зацвітають, плодоносять і відмирають.
Those that attract our attention immediately are those with yellow flowers. At first sight, they look like similar plants, but they belong to different species. This is an anemone ranunculoides, then Icaria verna and Gagia lutea. They differ in flower structure and leaf shape. Anemone ranunculoides has 5 parts to it. The disc in the center of the flower gives a special charm, studded with numerous pistils and stamens. Gentle petals react sensibly to the weather, closing when it is frosty, during bad weather and at night. So they save their pollen from the rain and dew. And at sunrise, the flowers will open wide, exposing their fruitful core. Anemone is clearly visible in the leafless forest. Pollinating insects visit it willingly. This plant plays a significant role in the ecosystem of deciduous forest, is a source of nectar and pollen for the first insects that awaken. Icaria verna is characterized by its large number of petals and stamens. With modest little suns, they glow against the glossy, heart-shaped leaves, covering the forest with a yellow-green carpet. These amazing plants have adapted to bloom when there are no leaves on the trees and each ray of sunshine reaches the ground, giving all of its warmth to the first flowers. But there is another trick that allows ephemeroids to grow quickly and get stronger. Primroses have accumulated nutrients in advance, in their tubers, bulbs, or rhizomes, preserved in the ground since the previous spring.
найбільш показний, який зараз перед нами, це ряст порожнистий. Його різнобарвний
The most indicative species is the hollow root. Its inflorescences create multicolored carpets. What are the features of these species?
Серед рястів.
Besides the multicolored inflorescence, there is a cavity in its terrestrial bulb. That is why it is called hollow.
Порожнину в підземній цибулині. Тому і називається порожнистий.
This bright and noticeable plant suffers because people grab it for bouquets. Therefore, the plant is listed in those species that are protected in Kyiv. That is, it is a rare species in this region.
Які охороняються в місті Києві. Тобто він є регіонально рідкісним видом.
The hollow root blossoms about 2 weeks with lilac, pink, white inflorescences. This carpet is complemented with an elegant pulmonaria. This early awakening perennial differs in the absence of permanency in coloring preferences. During the flowering period, the pulmonaria changes from a bright pink to a dark purple. But plants attract pollinating insects not only with their bright flowers. Their pleasant fragrant messages are a call to taste their sweet nectar and at the same time to help in reproduction. Sometimes such a fragrant message is enough to attract the attention of the pollinator, and there is no need to all to flaunt a bright inflorescence. The Asarum europaeum or European wild ginger is one of these modest flowers. You need to make a real effort to catch a glimpse of them.
Рослина з сюрпризом.
This is such a plant with a surprise. It is blooming now, but you can see its flowers if you raise the leaves. There is no need for flowers to show their beauty.
Бачите, от квітки копитника європейського. Вона їх не ховає, вона
So the flower head may not be so bright. Its main pollinators, ants, notice the source of nectar when the flower is in that position.
Рослини виступає мураха, мурашки лісові.
By adapting in this manner, the forest and its inhabitants have been living according to their laws for millions of years, without needing help or intervention. The role of man is limited to observation and study. The local floral diversity not only decorates but also represents a certain scientific interest as part of the deciduous forest.
Відомо, що от ці первоцвіти, вони пов'язані лише з листяними лісами.
We know that these primroses are associated only with deciduous forests. Inside the national park, they can be found only in oak hornbeam forests. In the southern part, deciduous forests are concentrated in the valley of the Vita River.
Саме в долині річки Віти.
Several centuries ago, this tributary of the Dnipro River was a deep and navigable river. Old-timers say that Concha Zaspa received its name precisely from those ancient times when there were no roads and it was possible to get here only by water. At this very place, there was a pier to which boats with goods sailed. Sometimes the sailors had to shout quite loudly when calling the guards.
Коли підходили кораблі, чайки, вони кричали «Кончай спати».
Back then, there was no schedule for the arrival of ships. That's why, as soon as they moored, the guards shouted, "Stop sleeping!"
Ну, із того назва «Конча заспа», «Кончай спати». Коли підходив корабель, кричали.
And from above, the lifting ceramics were found there, facts which confirmed that there were people here. The guards were standing at the post.
Охоронці, які охороняли цю місцевість.
The archaeological digs have been carried out in the reserve. On the other hand, so-called lifting material, fragments of ceramics, female combs, jewelry dating back to Scythian times can say a lot about the ancient history of these places. There is a version that our ancestors, when fleeing from the Mongol Tatars who captured Kyiv in the 13th century, found refuge in Concha Zaspa and adjacent territories. The park has such historical places. For example, in Shapornya area, the settlement of masters for tailoring hats is about 6 hectares. Chumatsky Corner. This is where traders called Chumaks came to the pier to load up with salt. And there is a road along the park which led to Chumatsky Corner. The birth is long gone. The Vita River has become shallow, branching out into many marshy meadows. Washing the way, the river gives life to many inhabitants and wetland vegetation. One of the first cowslips is revealed, decorating the streams with bright yellow buds. Flowering early, it complements the spring carpet of ephemeroids, but in contrast to these perennials, the cowslip will not die after flowering, but will remain a deciduous green bush until the autumn, in harmony with the motley grass of wooded land areas. Divided by the vitas ducts, they rise, showing bare trunks for the time, then hide in lowlands that are covered in densely growing wild garlic. This relict form of a spring ephemeroid is listed in the Red Book of Ukraine. Now, when the corydalises are in the middle of blooming, the wild garlic is only tied up in buds. Its time is in May. Then the islands of oak ash forests will be covered with a solid carpet of white stars. Perhaps nowhere else has such a large glade with wild garlic been preserved. This is the uniqueness of these places.
На жаль, зараз ми не можемо передати запах у кадр.
Unfortunately, we can't convey its smell through video. The smell is very similar to garlic or green onions. The taste is also neutral. In fact, it is wild garlic, which is the basis of Green Book communities of oak ash forest with wild garlic.
Яка є основою для зеленокнижних угруповань дубово-ясеневих лісів з цибулею ведмежею, які тут охороняються у нас. Це наша гордість національного природного парку.
It is the pride of our Holosyivsky National Park. This plant is loved by animals because it blooms just in spring after a hard winter season, when there is a vitamin deficiency.
Навесні, після важкого сезону зимового, коли немає вітамінів, не вистачає.
Like any onion, wild garlic is a phytoncide with powerful antibacterial properties. Even bears prefer wild garlic after a long winter hibernation. That's why it is called the bear onion. It helps other local inhabitants to get stronger. Badgers, boars, roes, and elks prefer it. This urban place of nature is well guarded. The beast is comfortable here. Especially so in these secluded, inaccessible swampy places in the southern part of Holosyivsky Park, in the Vita Valley, a tributary of the Dnipro River. It is very swampy. This marshy array with islands of wild garlic and corydales occupies about 800 hectares. This is the so-called forest tract.
Це урочі лісники, так звані.
The Foresters Reserve was established here in 1989, and since that time there has been no activity at all, and we can see a forest that looks more like a natural one.
Ліс, який більш-менш, навіть скоріше більш схожий на природний.
For about 30 years, the local natural resources were protected by the reserve. That is why they are considered the wildest massif in the park. The trees weren't chopped down or planted. The dead wood remained untouched, and this contributed to the life of the forest. It was a source of food and a shelter for insects.
Для заповідних зон, національних парків, ну і взагалі там для заповідників природних, це характерно, що дерево, якщо падає...
This is typical for nature reserves and national parks. If a tree falls, nobody removes it. It decomposes in a natural way, and fungi have a role in this process. Different organisms can settle in a fallen tree. Bats, many birds, and insects can settle in the hollows.
Різні організми, бачимо мох, наприклад, ті ж гриби можуть оселятись в дуплах відмерлих дерев кажани або
including items that are found in the Red Book, which can only live in such rotten or old trees. This is part of the ecosystem and there is no point in removing the tree, since we're exploring natural processes taking place.
Її прибирати немає сенсу, оскільки ми досліджуємо саме природні процеси.
The green roses of Sempervivum will release their flower stalks closer to summer. Tall with yellow flowers, they're hard to miss. Now the rosette of this succulent, clinging to the sandy soil, are replenishing many of their thick petals with moisture, obviously in anticipation of the hot summer days. Changes in the deciduous forest are around the corner. The broad carpet of primroses will disappear, and the time will come for shade-tolerant green vegetation. Travel with us and discover unexplored Ukraine.